Hey out there. This is Friday, October, 19th. Yeah, October 19th, 2018. And it's just about almost exactly 8:30 in the morning here in Northern California. And as usual, I'll get into a lot of different stuff. I kind of wanted the theme to be the degree of tyranny that we're willing to live under as a society, as a nation, as Americans. And we live in a very unique country because we know that America's a trendsetter. And so, by extension, we're influencing the entire planet. And so it kind of simplifies things to point out that we really need to get our own act together and set an example here before we're going to hope to affect change around the world. And that day seems to be getting further and further away, but scientifically speaking, I know that it's coming closer and closer. That the day of reckoning is coming, that it's all going to hit the fan eventually. It has to. Otherwise, this could evolve into a very nightmarish situation for humanity at large. And so we're at that brink, that precipice around the world, and we have to face that fact. We have to admit that we have failed utterly, socially, politically, and economically. Okay, the degree of tyranny that we're willing to accept apparently knows no limits. And people largely don't even know what I'm talking about. I mean, they think, what the hell does he mean? What is tyranny? I mean, it's oppression. It's a lack of freedom. It's a loss of freedom. And they're doing it through economic means. And they're turning us into believing, they're training us to believe that we need to accept an ever-growing renting class. You understand what's going on here? We're all having to feed the beast. And they're making that clear that this cost of living tax is not something you can avoid. It's not something you can evade. We're all under the yoke. We're forced, not by law so much as by survival instincts. This is what's going on. They're literally playing into our survival instincts. So the degree of fear that they have imparted into the public at large, the masses, has reached a fevered pitch. And we're in a whole lot of trouble. And I want people to wake up to that. I want them to wake up just to the overwhelmingly diabolical nature of these people. That the vast majority of the masses can't really rightly wrap their mind around how insane these people are and how deviant they are, devious, and just diabolical, devilish. There's no other way to explain it. They're just so cunning and tricky and surreptitious and sneaky and evil genius. What they've done to us, what they've done. I mean, by murdering JFK, people say, well, big deal, get over it and all that. You don't understand what happened there. And we're going along as a nation as if it was no big deal. It's just yesterday's news and get over it. Don't you understand? It's like Satan himself took over at that time. And it was all through the money printing operation, the issuance of currency. Okay, that's what that was all about. Okay, that's why it was so controversial. So the first thing, why so many people believe it's obviously an assassination. I mean, day one after the assassination of JFK, the Federal Reserve should not have existed. Okay, end of story right there. He had already effectively supplanted the need for the Federal Reserve. Okay, with silver notes, silver certificates. Okay, don't you understand? Our nation has been under the control of exceedingly evil forces. And remember, when it comes to understanding a critical mass, you've got to understand the rudder on a ship. It's a very small instrument, right, that we all know. It turns one way and the boat turns one way and it turns another and it turns another way. Okay, but look what it controls. So you could say, yeah, okay, I get it. Critical mass could be a minority. Oh, not only a minority, okay, it could be an extremely tiny minority. It could be a tiny percentage of a fraction. Okay, it could at the end of the day essentially be one master, and that would be that satanic force that Jesus alluded to. Okay, that's what's going on here. We're all being affected and infected by very evil forces, demonic forces, and we're all in a lot of trouble. And we've got to admit it. We've got to say, hey, it is true. We've utterly failed. You know, people that complain about California, me going off on Owen Schroyer and Alex Jones. I mean, look, it's all I know. I mean, my dad was not easy on me when he thought I was really wrong in my thinking. I mean, he let me know under no uncertain terms. Okay, he knew how to rebuke me. Believe me, he had a tough childhood, and he had a tough teenagehood, and he was a tough guy as a result. And he dreamed dreams that most men dare not even dream, and he accomplished a lot of them too. And he was quite an individual. I've got interesting stock I come from, but one thing he never was easy on me. He was a former Marine, and he was half Indian. My grandfather, my granddad was, his dad was all Indian, Mississauga tribe. If you look up Port Credit, you'll see the association with Mississauga, an area south of Toronto, Canada. But anyhow, he was a good guy. I met him a couple times when I was very young. He died young at 72. I believe I was probably about 13 years old or so, 14 maybe, when my dad's dad died at 72. My dad, of course, lived to be 86, and I figured, well, my dad lived 14 years longer than his dad, and so if I live 14 years longer than my dad, I've got to, that'll get me to an even 100. Nice round number. I like that. But I'm 60 now, and I feel like I got another 60 in me, so I'm not too concerned. If I don't, I don't. Let God's will be done. We're all living a very precarious existence in these flesh and blood bodies, these carnal bodies of death, the mortal body, the mortal coil. And that's a heavy trip, man. I mean, psychologically speaking, I mean, that's a big deal. And we need God's help just to deal with the organic suffering that we go through. And the only reason that we aren't more troubled by this thing we call death is because of what I believe happened 2,000 years ago with Jesus coming here and raising the dead. Okay, he himself was resurrected. And it largely took away the sting of death, which was much more formidable. It was much more agonizing for people. They did a lot more what you call lamenting over this thing called death. It was a very dark thing, evil and bad and just sordid and morbid and just everything horrible. And it to a degree it still is because of our lack of faith as a species. But God assured us that, it's no different from going to bed at night. It's a little different, to a higher degree perhaps, but basically your soul is an everlasting force. It's an essence we have, our heart, our mind, our spirit, so these invisible qualities that, those invisible things we value, like your integrity and your honor, your conscience, your reputation, your soul. At the end of the day, you feel a need, an instinct to be who you have to be and to thine own self be true. And that's your connection to God, basically, even if you don't understand it, even if you're agnostic or atheist, you still kind of understand this philosophy that, we're eternal beings. I've often said, hey, I don't know, the reason I've never really latched on a career that paid good, for one thing. I don't like conflating what I do to serve humanity with money. I find that abhorrent. And for another thing, there's just so many things that are interesting to me that I figured out a long time ago that I just need to live forever. I've got to find a way because I want to do this, that, and the next thing. And as long as I'm under the bondage of having to make money and feed the beast, right? I'm like everybody else. I've been rendered kind of a brute beast automaton to a degree, to that degree, that I'm under this tyranny of having to feed the beast, being forced to do it to survive. So forget the tax man. I mean, he's small potatoes compared to this cost of living tax beast, okay, that we all have to pay in order to continue to exist as human beings, to survive. And it ain't God. It ain't God that did this to us. And people got to understand that. His name's going to be vindicated. It's not his fault. Nothing bad is his fault. But again, I digress all over the place. But, I was apologizing to Owen Schroyer and Alex Jones about, I'm being a little hard on them and, I get a little nasty. And, I would revert back to James chapter 3. Read it. I need to read it all the time. It's like reading scripture is like eating food to me. And I got to do it all the time. Okay, that's the only way. And I believe everybody should eat regularly. We all need to. We get this advice, this counsel, this truth. Okay, because God doesn't hide truth. Okay, we couldn't emulate him. We couldn't, we couldn't do what he tells us to do, reflect him and represent him properly, unless we know what the hell we need to do to be like him and to please him and to find true happiness and all this. So it's all there. I mean, when I see the way Trump talks about women, I mean, I'm sorry, I can't defend that. I don't know where it's an arrogance, that he can come off like a pompous a-hole, and I'm apologizing right now for coming off like a pompous a-hole. And it says in James chapter 3 that the tongue is a restless evil. What man can tame the tongue? Okay, man that can tame the tongue is perfect. And I've never met a man on earth, not a preacher, a pastor, a priest, anybody that could raise their hand and say they're perfect. Okay, we all screw up. We're an effed up species from the onset. It's from this original sin, the fall of man, the knowledge of good and evil, all that crap. When death entered the picture, when it was never meant to. And if you scoff at that idea, then you're scoffing at the idea that there's a higher power that threw the universe together and everything contained therein, all the planets, the solar systems, all this crap, the life, the water, everything, man. I mean, to say that there's not a designer is just bizarre to me. Okay, it's just like saying there's no designer for an automobile. And we all know that's stupid. We all know that, on its face, empirically speaking, you can see how they have to design it. First somebody has an idea, then they write it on paper, and then somebody else does something else, and it moves along, okay? And you manifest it. You build it. It's like a piece of art, right? A painting. It didn't just appear. You didn't have it in your head. You had to do it as a process. And that's what happened here. But God can pull the fertility plug. So people that worry that, we're overpopulated if we live forever. You know what? Look, come on. The first step to faith is to believe that if God gave us the power to procreate, logically speaking, then he's got the power to remove our power to procreate. It's that simple. So never, this idea that the earth's overpopulated, it's none of your damn business, none of my damn business. Okay, just leave it to God and figure out our problems. What's bugging you specifically? Is it traffic on the LA freeway? I get it. Well, first step, immediately, you want to do a little triage and start a basic income. That's it. All these people, we've created jobs out there, and now the vast majority of jobs revolve around the problems persisting in society. They revolve around the problems persisting and preferably growing. That'll give job security. Good God, we're so effed up. I mean, God help us. When you see what's happened in our society with the crime industrial complex, what is the main driver of crime? Ask any sociologist, any criminologist. It's desperation. It's fear-driven. People are scared. There's not that many just cuckoo people in society. Okay, there's a rhyme and a reason. It's cause and effect. People are desperate. They're frightened. They're scared. Do you understand? Economically, it's been done through the money. Do you understand? The beast is doing this to us, manipulating our reality. I mean, the way I talk, I know it sounds idealistic, but we're supposed to shoot for being an ideal society. Work in that direction. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, it's only reasonable and logical for the welfare of not only ourselves, our happiness, contentment, peace of mind, but the future generation, our children, grandchildren. We got to work for a better world. And where's the plateau? No, don't stop. You're trying to bring in, usher in heaven the way it's promised in Scripture when you say the Lord's Prayer. May God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven.